If you're ever walking through a deep part of the Pine Barrens and you come across one of these, run. Welcome back to Gam Catches Up. So today's story, I asked a couple of my friends online what they wanted to hear. Did they want to hear another follow-up funny story? Did they want to hear one that was more spooky, scary? And the feedback I got was that they wanted to hear a spooky, scary one. So that's what I'm going to do today. Before I get into the story, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit that share button, put it on social media, wherever you want to place it, and hit that subscribe button. It definitely helps me out. Also, if you're liking what I'm throwing out there, put a comment in there. If you're not liking what I'm throwing out, put a comment in there. The only way I'm going to get any better at this is if you're giving me actual feedback. Thank you again for watching this, and let's start. As I've stated before, I grew up out in the Pinelands of New Jersey. There is a lot of legend, a lot of lore out there, and a lot of history to it. One of those legends was of Emilio Carranza, who is a famous Mexican aviator who actually crashed his plane in the Pine Barrens not far away from where I lived out in the middle of the woods during a thunderstorm. I may do another video really detailing his history because it is actually an interesting story. Needless to say, he was such a famous aviator and on top of it such a good person that the children of Mexico sent their pennies and had a memorial placed back where his plane had crashed. And they named the road after him. So it was Carranza Memorial and Carranza Road. As a 17-year-old, the memorial wasn't as important to us at the time as the road that ran in back of the memorial. It was almost like a horseshoe that went around the memorial. At the top of that horseshoe is where we would all go sneak and party out in the woods. Not just me and my friends would go out there drinking. You would get random locals that would show up from time to time and be back there. Not far away from the memorial was also a campground, so sometimes those people would see us back there or see our cars back there and come wandering over and share a beer or two with us. Now, before I get into the meat of the matter, I should explain something. People from the Pinelands, and the Pine Barrens in particular, they like to call themselves Pineys. It's said that if you live out in the Pine Barrens for 20 years of your life or you were raised out in that area, that you're automatically a Piney. There's even t-shirts and bumper stickers declaring yourself a Piney, and that's a cute definition of it. However, actual, real, true Pineys are born and raised in the Pine Barrens away from civilization. They live off the land. They live in things called piney shacks. They're known for their pretty poor hygiene. They set snares and traps. They hunt natural. They are so ingrained into nature that they can move silently through the woods. You can't tell a piney's there. You might be able to smell them, but you rarely ever see them. If it were the mountains, they would be known as hillbillies. There's lots of rumors of inbreeding and physical deformities. If you've ever seen the movie Wrong Turn or The Hills Have Eyes, imagine that in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, and that is what a true Piney is. One night, me and a group of my friends, we're all back at the memorial and we're all drinking and we're having a good time, just enjoying ourselves. And this little guy, when I say little, he was probably about 4'10", 4'11", comes wandering up behind us and says, "Can I get one of your beers?" His hair was long and greasy. He had the beginnings of a beard going on. He smelled terrible. His clothes looked like he rolled through the mud. And he had 3 teeth in his head, and I'm pretty sure they were all in the back of his mouth. Not thinking anything of it, thinking it might have just been somebody who wandered over from the campground that was nearby. We pass him a beer. We go back to talk and turn around to ask him a question, and he's just gone. We can't seem to find him anywhere. He's just completely disappeared. As quickly as he came in, was as quickly as he vanished. So now we start discussing it, and we realized, hey, that was probably a true Piney. He's probably out in the woods somewhere right now just watching us drinking that beer. And we put it to bed. We didn't think anything more of it because we were all drinking and enjoying ourselves. So we kind of forgot about it. Fast forward to a couple months later. Now, I had two friends with me on this actual little misadventure, and one of them I'm going to call Reg, because even though he had a full head of hair back in the day, he now looks like Reg from the movie Phantasm, the way his hair is. Reg always wore cowboy boots at the time, which is kind of funny because none of us were cowboys, and he also wore a trench coat kind of like mine. Reg was a good 3 years older than I am, and I had a lot of adventures with him when I was younger and in my late teens, early 20s. I'm sure there's going to be more stories coming up about him. The other person with us was a kid who was, at this point in time, I'm going to say he was 15 years old. He was a couple years younger than I am. He was short and chunky, and he had a face like a pug dog, and I'm going to call him Chuckles. Chuckles was a lot like a younger brother to all of us, and he was annoying like a younger brother, but he also had a mouth that wouldn't stop. So if you said you were going to smack him if he kept talking, he would keep talking just to make you smack him. He was one of those type of personalities. Anyway, Reg picks up myself and Chuckles and tells us, let's go out into the woods. We're going to go see if we can find remains of Emilio Carranza's plane. Now, if the internet had been a thing back then, like it is now, we would have known that the plane wreckage was removed years ago, because that's where the memorial sits. But we didn't know that, because the rumor had it that the memorial was just a roundabout marker where the plane had crashed, and the actual plane crash was further back in the woods behind Carranza, back where we used to party, but even further back in the woods, like a half-mile back in the woods. So Chuckles, Reg, and myself, we drive out to Carranza. He drives around the little horseshoe in back of the memorial where we normally party, parks the car, we all get out. It's middle of the afternoon. He locks the doors, rolls up the windows, and we trek out into the woods. We just picked a direction and started walking. We pick up a little deer trail, maybe 20 feet back. Now we're walking, and we're walking for probably 45 minutes, roundabouts. And next thing we know, we smell the sweet, sickly smell of death is the best way I can describe it. Like animal has died near us. A deer maybe, and we just chalk it up to, hey, that's nature. That happens back here sometimes. Maybe a squirrel died, maybe a deer died. Maybe somebody was hunting, shot a deer, it got away from them. Whatever the case. So the smell stays with us for a little while, and then it starts to get a little bit more intense, and a little bit more intense, and it makes us a little uneasy because we realize we've been walking now for like 5-6 minutes. That smell should have disappeared. We didn't see any carcasses laying around or anything like that, but we could definitely smell it around us. And it was pretty strong. We see a little clearing up ahead of us, a little break in the woods, and Reg, out of nowhere, says, hey, what is that mound of leaves over there? Now, this mound of leaves was really big. It almost looked like a hill on the ground, but it was crafted out of leaves, and then it had like live vines wrapped on top of it. So now we're all starting to think, hey, we found a piece of wreckage from the plane. Let's go investigate this. This is awesome. We walk up to the mound, and it stinks. So now we're looking at this mound, and the mound is about chest height, so I'd say it's about 4 foot tall. And Chuckles out of nowhere goes, hey, is this a door? And I look, and it looks like a wood pallet covering a small opening with a crack to the side of it. I turned to Reg and said, you know, I've heard about structures like this, and I've built a structure like this. It's called a leaf hut. Reg says, hey, I've heard of structures like this. They call them Piney shacks. Now, usually with a Piney shack, the rumor always had it that there is a still inside of most of them, and Pineys will kill you for getting even close to them. As a matter of fact, it's a rumor, but it's also kind of well known for people that live out in the Pine Barrens that certain trails you don't ride your dirt bike down, you don't ride a quad down, because Pineys, where they build their Piney shack, will take barbed wire and string it at neck height between the trees, so it either decapitates you or knocks you off the back of your bike for getting close to their Piney shack with their still inside. So now Reg and I are looking at each other, and our hearts are both beating fast. I turn to Chuckles and tell him to peek through the crack and see what he sees inside. Chuckles looks through the crack. He says, I see some bones and I see copper. The moment he said copper, Reg and I gasped at the same time. Chuckles, realizing it's a Piney shack, doesn't say a word, just starts running the way we came in up this little trail. He yells behind him, this Piney ain't gonna get me, guys. And he's just gone. It's about that moment Reg and I heard something rustle over in the tree line. And so now we're looking for it just to see, because we don't want to get hit in the back. We're looking around for any other sign of motion out in the woods. And we're backing away from the Piney shack real slow. Now, like I said earlier, Pineys don't make sound when they go through the woods. So that might have been a squirrel or a bird. Reg and I didn't care. We were backing away towards the trail, slowly, with our hands up, and soon as our feet hit that trail, both of us took off like a shot and started running. There was this smell, though. On top of the sickly sweet smell of death, there was a smell like used gym socks, and I swear we could feel eyes on us just watching us from the woods. So Reg and I are sprinting now, and we see Chuckles not that far ahead of us. He's running off the trail. And he's looking back at us, and he's looking back at us. And like I said in a previous video, you never look back if you think something's chasing you. And just as Reg and I are catching up to Chuckles, he yells out, and his foot catches something on the ground. And he face plants hard, thud, and just smacks on the ground. Chuckles starts yelling, guys, I tripped, help, something's got my foot, help, guys, stop. Reg and I, still running in lockstep, run straight past him, look at each other and say, you're on your own, and we keep running, and we ran all the way back to the car. About 10 minutes later, Chuckles gets out of the woods. We already have the car running. He hops in the car. He's crying, now you guys left me. And we're like, you left us. And it's like they say, I don't have to run fast. I just have to run faster than you. And Reg started laughing, and he had this classic laugh about him. Ha 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 ha! And we drove out of the woods, out of Carranza, and headed for home. We never did go back that way through the woods to go see what that shack was, or to see if we could find more of the plane wreckage or any of that stuff. Because after that, we were pretty much done with our exploration in that part of the woods. We figured we got lucky once, we got away once, let's not push our luck. From then on, we always carried a small flask of whiskey or vodka or whatever type of alcohol on us. Just in case we did come across the Piney shack, we could leave it as a small tribute to the Piney inside, so they would give us safe passage through their part of the forest. Hopefully you guys liked the video, and if you did, please smash the like button, let me know. Also, make sure you comment, tell me if you want to hear more stories like this, or what type of stories you do want to hear, because I've got a ton of them from when I was a kid. If you can do me a favor and share this with a buddy, it always helps me grow my channel, and I can get these stories out to more people. And also, don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to try to have a new story, new video done every Tuesday. Thank you again for listening, and I appreciate all of you. So until next time, I'm Gam, and I'm out. Like a deaf kid in a game of musical chairs.